Hello, welcome everyone. You guys are listening to WGSN-DB Going Solo Network, and this is the Going Solo Life After Relationship Loss. And the reason we talk about this is because it's so serious. It's like as we're making that transition into our new life of being single, we have a lot of roads that we have to travel, right? A lot of paths that we have to take. And so a lot of it is we're really starting to make that transition at the onset of the loss. So today we're going to be talking about divorce. We're going to be moving forward into that. But before I do that, I'd like to introduce myself. I am Cece Schatz. I'm the doyen of relationship building. I've been helping singles and those who have been traveling through, connecting them through our Going Solo singles. And I hope that you guys will check it out. Just go on goingsolomedia.com. You'll see all of the information that we do there on Going Solo Network. But we really help you through that relationship loss, through even widowed if you have a loss that way. We also help you with that through divorce, transition into dating. We travel, we do singles in business. There really isn't much that we don't do that we don't touch on. So we want you to check us out right there on goingsolomedia.com. All of our wonderful shows and guests and hosts, and we just have an array of information for you. But let's get on to our topic today, because we have an elite guest with us, Rosemarie Ferrante. I hope I pronounced her name correctly, and if I don't, she's going to tell me. Welcome, Rosemarie.
You got it right. Thank you.
Oh, wonderful. Well, it is so nice to see you again. You are one of our favorite people, and I know you've been on here before. And we're going to talk about a subject that's kind of dear to our hearts, collaborative divorce. And, so tell us a little bit about yourself. I know you're an elite. You support us, and we want to thank you for that. We're going to talk about divorce with respect. But how did you get into doing what you're doing? I know that you're an attorney, a mediator. You do collaborative divorce. So tell us why you have this passion to help people through really one of the toughest times of their life.
Absolutely. So I have been practicing exclusively family law for over 25 years. I started in New York, I moved to Connecticut, and I used to litigate. And I saw a lot of destruction between family members, between families. What started with love can end with respect. And I finally, about 10 years ago, pivoted my practice solely to non-adversarial divorce. Litigation, and many people still assume divorce, we have to lawyer up, get our lawyers, go to court. And I recognize that sometimes that's appropriate. But I do want people to understand what that looks like and what it doesn't look like. And to understand there are two options, non-adversarial divorce options, divorce mediation and collaborative divorce, that are alternatives to the traditional, way people think that you've got to, again, lawyer up and go to court. So that's what I focus my practice on.
Yeah, a lot of people just think it's the traditional way of doing things, right? They think, okay, when they're going through the divorce, they think, okay, I just got to go out and get an attorney, and I've got to fight through the whole thing. And there's a lot of better ways to do that, through mediation. I know you're a mediator, and but most people don't understand the collaborative divorce process.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe we could focus a little bit on that. So could you explain to our audience what that is exactly?
Absolutely. And I just want to start by what you had said, which is many people do think they need to protect themselves. And that comes from a place of fear. When you're recognizing your marriage is over, it's really hard to put trust in your partner, because I'm sure I know there's a sense of fear of the unknown, of potentially betrayal, anger. There's so much emotion. And so that's really what drives people, is the fear of the unknown, and I need to protect myself. And I want people to know that you can do that in a non-adversarial divorce process. So specifically with respect to a collaborative divorce, the difference is you both have attorneys, similar to, going out and hiring litigators, but there's a very marked distinction. Everybody signs a participation agreement, and that agreement says that nobody is going to court. We're going to proceed with good faith. We're going to proceed with transparency. We're going to provide all the information both of us need so that we can make good decisions. In real time, you have your collaborative lawyers there to give you advice, but the whole mindset is very different than litigation. This isn't two lawyers fighting over positions. My client is entitled to stay in the house, or your client did this. It's a collaborative approach. The lawyers are guiding the spouses in discussions to explore all the different scenarios for resolution of whatever specifically involved in their family. And let's not forget, every family is different. So, potentially they have parenting issues. Maybe there's a family business that needs to be valued. Whatever the specific issues are, the two collaboratively trained attorneys, and it's important to make sure they're collaboratively trained, are going to guide these discussions and talk about goals. So rather than my client demands this, it's, these are the concerns. Let's explore all of the scenarios for resolution until we find one that best aligns with both people's goals. Because we want to transition this family through the restructuring of their family in as healthy a way as possible. And that requires support, not only legally, as we've been talking about with your lawyers, but also emotional support. This is a highly emotional time. You're called on to make decisions when you're feeling vulnerable and frightened. So we all want to make sure that this team-like approach ensures you have the emotional support you need. And as equally important is the financial information and education. Everybody needs to really understand the finances to be able to make the best decisions. So it's an integrative process that involves many disciplines and makes sure that both spouses are equally prepared and on an even playing field to have these really important discussions.
Wow, this is very, very important. And, what it sounds like to me is that you're creating kind of a path for your future, right? Versus, because, our families don't, it doesn't just go away when we get divorced, right? When we have children, we're still in the mix with that individual. We're still trying to raise our family together as parents. And so we're creating this new path, this new horizon for us as a family. And so I think it sounds like a much better plan than to argue and fight, because 9 times out of 10, that's why we're getting divorced anyhow, right? There's some sort of a disagreement there going on, but you're creating a scenario for your family to be able to step forward in a more cohesive way versus, getting, I think it's so much better for the children, really.
Well, and that's exactly right. So you think about an adversarial court process.
Mm-hmm.
In my opinion, that's best suited for people who never need to see each other again. Medical malpractice, car accident, personal injury, whatever it might be. You need to see your co-parent again. If you have children, you're going to continue to be in each other's lives. And so when you start this process, the best thing to think about is, how do we want our kids to remember this? What do we want? And how, just on a personal level, when dealing with conflict, how do you approach it? Conflict is inevitable in every divorce. Combat is optional. It's tempting. You're angry. You want to focus on the past. You want to bring up, well, why did you do this 4 years ago? In a collaborative divorce, we're focusing on the future. And that's really what you nailed it, Cece, when you said this is a path. Your ultimate separation agreement, which includes your parenting plan, your financial plan, all of the issues related to your marriage in a document, that's the blueprint for your post-divorce life. And so the goal is, how are we going to continue as a family? Because like you said, families don't end. Marriages might, but families don't. And how are we going to proceed in a compassionate and respectful manner for the best of our children? Because that's really what matters. Divorce does not need to be destructive. Let's normalize it, and let's help families through this process in a way that best suits everyone for a positive post-divorce life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I think it's something that most families really need to start analyzing and evaluating this. I mean, I'm sure that there are some divorces that you just can't get away from. You have, there's the arguments go on. They're not cooperative individuals, and so therefore this kind of what the problem is. But if you've got something where and I tell many people is that at the end of the day, you're going to get divorced, so why do you want to spend so much money? Why do you want to create the havoc, the havoc of the fighting and all of that going on? Because at the end of the day, you're going to be at the same place. You're going to be divorced.
Well, and not only that, you're going to have a lot less money. So
Yes.
do you want to pay for your lawyer's kids to go to college or your own?
Right.
Let's save the money. And it's not easy. Again, divorce is never easy. But you know what's interesting? You in your program really have a lot of discussion about post-divorce lives. Let's set people up for the best post-divorce lives. The funny thing is, many people come to mediation or collaborative to save money, but what they learn throughout the process is so important for their post-divorce lives. How are we going to co-parent? Unraveling a spousal relationship and building a new relationship that's co-parenting is a process. But don't forget, on the other side of this, you may be open to new relationships. What you learn through the mediation and collaborative divorce process with respect to healthy communication is so important. It's so important. That emotional piece can't be unemphasized. It's really a big part of getting through the process, because you're breaking down these like dysfunctional marital dynamics that many people have, and realizing like, okay, you know what, there's power in not reacting. There's power in just, we disagree, and that's okay, but this is how we're going to deal with that. There will always be disagreements. If you can learn to disagree respectfully with your spouse who you're divorcing, soon to be former spouse, what a gift that is to your future relationships.
Right. Right. Absolutely. Well, and what I like about it too is the fact that you're both representative, by your own attorney. So you feel like your legal rights are being, watched over, right? They're being, you're kind of in a safe place, because you know that your attorney is going to be there to make sure that nothing's going to go down that isn't going to be appropriate, that's not right for you. And so often I think when we go through divorce, we kind of feel like someone's going to get the upper side, right? They're going to take advantage of us, and we're not going to know it because we don't know anything about divorce. We've never been through this before. Or if we have, we've had a really bad experience. So, you want to make sure that you're covered. And I think having it done this way, where you have an attorney that represents both of you individually, and then you feel a little bit more protected. Am I correct?
I think that's really important. But I will say, even in a mediation process where there's one mediator and you're both there, there's always the protection of the legal rights. So there's a couple of things to think about. In a mediation, although you're working with one potentially attorney who does not represent and cannot give advice, you both have review attorneys. In a collaborative, it's in real time though. So that's really important to people. So when you're thinking about your own situation, one may be better for you than the other. If you feel you won't be able to advocate for yourself, and by the way, this is a time to learn to, you need to be empowered in your own process, whether you're working with a litigator, a collaborative attorney, or a mediator, to own what you feel and to be able to express it. So that's a part of, analyzing the appropriate process for you and your family. But for the people who really want their attorney with them there every step of the way, absolutely collaborative makes the most sense. I do want to just emphasize again, though, that your lawyers, both lawyers are there to explore scenarios, to answer questions. It's a team approach. And so it's really interesting for people then to see their spouse's attorney who's not out to get them and who's going to explain the law the same way that their own attorney is going to. No attorney should ever tell you this is what's going to happen, make you promises or make you guarantees, because everything in family law is really fluid. There's a range of judicial norms. And so there's a real balance in the collaborative process and in mediation of, well, I feel that that's fair. based on my knowledge of our family and all of the decisions we've made that got us here, balancing that with what would happen in court and how much weight do we want to put on judicial norms and our own inherent idea of fairness, balancing that to come up with the solutions that really are going to make the most sense for us.
Yeah, that makes sense. So everybody says to me when they talk about collaborative divorce, they say, "Oh, that's so expensive because you have two attorneys." You usually have two attorneys anyhow, but you have two attorneys. It's just going to be more, it's going to be drawn out. It's going to take longer. It's going to be very, very expensive. Is any of that true?
No. So, you know, the difference is this. Yes, lawyers are expensive. Yes, you have two engagement fees that you need to pay. And let's not forget, if we're being honest, there may be a financial neutral you're paying. There may be a mental health coach that you're paying, depending on the team that your family needs. The timeline is up to you. The process is efficient. It's private. So, you know, let's say you all get together and you have identified, gathered the financials, and now you know we've identified what the issues are. These are the next steps. You plan for it, take the next appropriate steps. You're not waiting on court dates. That, by the way, might be 6 months down the road. That, by the way, might be 5 minutes in a virtual hearing with a judge who doesn't have any of the information that your collaborative team has. So it's a very efficient process. It is well, again, never have guarantees. It is more often than not substantially less expensive than litigation. You know, and I say this with mediation as well. Sometimes I've had mediations that are more expensive than some collabs, and vice versa. It depends on the family, it depends on the issues, and it depends on the team. Again, consumers need to know that this is their family and they can make the decisions best suited for their family and contain them in that safe place with the budget that they feel is appropriate.
Right, right. Now, I wanted to ask you, you had mentioned that it's private. Now, I know that when we go to court normally, right, when we go through the normal process of divorce, you go in, you know, into the judge and whatever conversation you have can be public, you know. So that means if you're arguing over whatever, that's public, you know, that the amounts are there, the dollar amounts are there, everything that you've said is there, and all of that is out in the open. Now, when you do collaborative divorce, it's kind of on a mediation type of environment, then that's not public. Am I correct?
Correct. I mean, think about how stressful that would be to be in a courtroom, to be up on the stand, to be asked personal questions, whether it's about your children or your finances, and there's a room full of strangers who can hear all of this coming in and out. You know, I was just on a call last night with the Bar Association. One of the judges was talking about how, you know, he's ensuring these are public procedures. People are allowed in and out of the courtroom. So in a mediation or collaborative, the meetings are private. They're again held at times that everyone agrees upon in places that everybody agrees upon. It's confidential. Nothing used in a collaborative or a mediation can be used later in a litigation if, God forbid, the process breaks down, which doesn't happen often, but sometimes does. Usually it's if people have chosen the wrong process and maybe didn't have the right guidance as to what would make the most sense with their family. So, you know, as you'd said, it would be a beautiful world if everybody could mediate or have a collaborative divorce. There are circumstances under which that will not be possible. You need two people who are agreeing to participate in good faith with full transparency. It's voluntary. So, you know, if one person doesn't want to meet for 6 months, that's a problem. You know, this might not be the best process. If there's intimate partner violence, if there's substance abuse, there are certainly professionals who can lead those discussions appropriately in a non-adversarial process. But for many reasons, some families cannot. If you're going to go through the litigation process, just do that with real understanding of what that means so your expectations are appropriate and you're not disappointed because, depending on your jurisdiction, every court operates differently, and it would be really important to understand that.
Yeah, I think this is very important. Well, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, let's talk about the process of what do we need to do if we decide, okay, let's go this route. Let's do the collaborative. Let's do the mediation. What is it that we need to start thinking about? We need to gather or start, putting our heads together with regards to doing that. So everyone, we are listening to Divorce with Respect by elite guest Rosemarie Ferrante. Hope I'm saying it correct. And you guys can reach her. I'm going to give you her phone number. Her phone number is 475-289-7801. It's 475-289-7801. And then her website is Divorce Mediation CT, which stands for what? Connecticut? Yeah, so it stands for Connecticut.com. So it's Divorce Mediation CT.com. That's her website. So check it out. She's got great information on there. You can give her a call, ask her any questions, see if she can help you. If not, I'm sure she'll point you in the right direction. So thank you so much, Rosemarie. We'll be right back.
Hey, ladies and gentlemen, give me your ear. I got something for you to hear. Yeah, right here on GoingSoloMedia.com. A new radio show. John Thomas is the host. Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 7 a.m. to 10 a.m. Listen in. Right here, WGSN-DB. GoingSoloMedia.com.
Hi, I'm John Thomas. I want to share with you a professional products and services directory we call Going Solo Directory. And you need to check this out. If you want exposure to your business or are seeking professional product or services, this directory has it all. And that membership, for the many special features, you get the benefit of a worldwide exposure with a 40-minute video interview on an international business show showcase. All this for just one low annual fee. For more information, contact GoingSoloDirectory.com.
Well, welcome back. You guys are listening to WGSN-DB Going Solo Network. I am Cece Schatz, a doyen of relationship building. We're talking about going solo life after relationship loss today. And this is really a difficult time for everyone, and we just want to be able to help you through that a little bit better. Just so that you know, our shows are sponsored by GoingSoloCommunity.com and MeetTheRightOne.com. If you don't know what those sites are, you need to check them out. Going Solo Community is a singles community that really kind of helps connect you with other people going through what you're going through, other like-minded people. And MeetTheRightOne.com is a brand new dating site, very unique. So check it out and join us there. We have our wonderful elite guest here, Rosemarie Ferrante. We're talking about divorce with respect. And, gosh, this is so important. This information, Rosemarie, you gave us the first part of the show, talking about collaborative divorce, trying to understand exactly what it is, mediation. How can you not only save money, and I believe that you can doing it this route, because you're actually trying to, create a path for yourself for your future, but you're also taking that stress, you're kind of bringing it down a level. You're still going to be stressful because, you're going through a difficult time, but you're not going to be fighting and arguing and raising your temperature, as much as what you would normally do. It's really, you kind of feel like you're playing a part in the decision making, right? Because you're laying out the situations, right? You're giving the other party the understanding of what's important to you, and they're doing the same, and you're trying to come together, as a family and make decisions that are going to be great for your family moving forward in your life, So I think this is very important. It's very good information, and you're a wonderful attorney for really stepping forward, because so many times that, collaborative wasn't even heard of, was it? And so a group of really great attorneys started coming forward with this idea. And now I really think more and more people are starting to see that this is the answer for divorce. This is the answer for, going through what we're doing, because, it just seems like the process, the legal process gets locked down. There's so many cases. I mean, it's just, who wants to be a number, right? Who wants to be that?
Exactly right.
Yeah. So we talked a lot about what it is, the first part of the show. Now let's talk about getting ourselves organized to be able to do that. Let's say, Rosemarie, we decide, okay, we want to come to you. We want to do this collaborative divorce. What can we do? How do we start organizing ourselves to be able to do that?
So, the very first thing that I talk to potential clients about is, are both spouses on the same page with proceeding? Are both spouses both ready to move forward in a divorce process with compassion and respect? A colleague of mine puts it this way: if divorce is a clock and you're at noon, where is your spouse? Because it's very common that one spouse is a few steps ahead of the other. And that's okay. That's manageable. But if one person does not want to be there, doesn't understand, doesn't feel this is the right process for their family, the very first step is the emotional work. Because when the emotional work isn't done, that's when the legal and financial is much more challenging. You cannot make good decisions if you're clouded by the inevitable emotions that come with divorce. So what I really like people to understand is, in the first instance, how do we get to the same place as spouses, understanding with clarity why we're here and how we want to move forward. And that's really where, there's a lot of wonderful mental health professionals who help couples. Let's put aside couples counseling, this is beyond that. This is one spouse is ready for divorce and the other isn't. There's two specific therapies that are really important for people to know: discernment counseling and healing separation. And it's kind of funny to hear a lawyer talk about this stuff. But if our goal as divorce professionals is to make a positive impact on the divorce process, we really want to educate people as to how to do that. It's not just like, oh, we want to get divorced. We'll do mediation. It's all going to be wonderful, and we're going to hold hands and sing songs. It's not easy. So getting that emotional prep work done first is so important. Now, if you have done that, and now let's assume you're both ready. Yes, we are both on the same page. We want to proceed with clarity and respect. Then it's finding the team. And finding the team is important. How do you do that? How do you find a collaborative attorney? How do you find a mediator who's trained? And so every state pretty much has non-adversarial divorce organizations. And really research that. Your divorce is different than your sister's or your neighbor's. So while their input might be useful to some degree, you don't want to just find your team based on what worked for someone else. Maybe there's a collaborative attorney who's a better fit for you. Maybe there's a mediator that is going to make you more comfortable. So really finding that right team is important. Finding the resources in your state to make sure that whomever you hire as part of your team is aligned with the way that you want the divorce to proceed. And then there's
great
prep work.
Yes, that's great. Well, what I love so much about what you're saying is that when we look at divorce on the other avenue, they don't talk about the emotional part of it at all. They don't talk about anything that the parties are going through, or I just kind of, okay, this is what you got to get together, blah, 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 blah. And that's all they, it's just paperwork, really, and just getting it through. But here on the collaborative, they really do think about what your parties are going through and try to work that out a little bit. So it's so you're not on that emotional roller coaster ride. You know, you're still going to feel, I mean, you're still going to have pain going through it because it's a breakup and it's something that's happening that neither party wanted. But you're there. But to try to really sweep that under the rug as we do the other way, it doesn't always work. And that's why I think fighting and all that really comes into play. And so, you know, often, you know, we talk about like division of assets, right? You know, you've got, it's pretty black and white when you're looking at the money, you're looking at various different things like that. You can see that on paper, right? But some of the emotional things that we have to distribute to each other, right, to each party, those becomes difficult when you got family heirlooms and things like that you're trying to distribute to each other, you know. And the reasons why someone wants to have something over the other person, it's not necessarily that they don't want the other person to have it, it's that it means more to them. You know, and I think if they can discuss that during the collaborative divorce, where you can't during the other divorce, you can't do that.
Well, the perfect example and the real life example that happens all the time is the house, particularly if there are young children. Somebody might feel it's best for the kids for us to stay in the house, and that's emotional, you know. And so what we want to then look at is, okay, but is it a financially sound decision? And so this is where your certified divorce financial analyst might be helpful. Maybe you're going to just work on it with your attorneys. Maybe you have your own professional, financial professional who you trust. But break down those numbers. A, can you afford it on a monthly basis? And B, if you can, does that still afford you, you know, when you're supporting two households as a divorced family, it's obviously a lot more challenging than supporting one household as an intact family. And so let's look at the budgets. Let's look at the numbers, you know, let's really analyze it and then talk about that goal again. If your concern, your emotional concern is keeping as much consistency for your kids as possible, are there other ways we can do that outside of the house if keeping the house isn't financially sound? So, you know, you can go through a litigation process and you can win the house and you can say like, hooray, I won. And in the end, it's the worst financial decision for you.
Right.
So we're just exploring all of these pieces to make sure, are you coming from an emotional place? Let's make no mistake, money is emotional. And tying that on top of the breakdown of a relationship, you know, and all of the underlying dynamics make these conversations challenging. But let's break it down. I've had people in mediations who are so used to disagreeing that even when they're agreeing, they're disagreeing. And I wish I had a great example of it, but there are so many times when I say, let's pause for a minute. I heard you say this and I heard you say that. You're agreeing, yet there was all this other chatter. You know, it's kind of, everyone has to sort of pause for a moment and really break down what it is that's important to them and how do we best achieve that given the financial circumstance of your family.
Right. And I like what you said about the house, because I've heard that over and over again, where they'll fight for the house because they want the kids to stay in it. But then when they really do get it, they realize, oh gosh, I can't afford this. I'm not going to be able to. And then it puts such a strain on them, you know, stress on them. And so, like you said, look at other ways, you know, can you move from that maybe into a smaller place or still in the same school district, you know, those kind of things. So the kids don't really move. They're just moving the house. So, you know, there's a lot of different ways to look at that. But it seems like to me on the collaborative divorce, you can kind of slow it down a little bit and go at your pace if you need to do that. You know, if you need, you may have some areas where you can make decisions pretty quick. It goes very fast. And then there are some of those harder things that you're trying to divide or trying to figure out, you know, a path for your family. And those you can take the time to slow down and really start thinking about them, talking to other professionals if you need that, because that's what you don't have that on the other side. You don't have that time. Everything's got to be done in a time frame. It's, you know, I mean, you can get extensions and things like that, but you feel like you're more in a rush to try to get these things resolved. Or
Mhm.
here you can really kind of talk it out, right?
And that's exactly what it is, because these are major decisions. And whether you're a collaborative attorney or a mediator, the goal is to help this family make decisions after they have all the information and support. So there have been times in either process where I may have a client who's just done, just wants to be done. And while there's a value in being done, that's usually when we have to slow it down. What I certainly don't want anybody to do is 6 months later say, I don't know why I made that decision. So let's slow it down. Let's talk about it. Let's make sure you have all the resources and information you need before you sign that agreement. And you understand, is there, for example, an obligation on you to refinance? You're going to keep the house, but you have to refinance. And there's a timeline in your agreement. Well, you're not going to sign that agreement until you've spoken to a mortgage professional and know that that's possible. How many times, do we see agreements after the fact that there was some unrealistic timeline? And, so whatever decision is going to be contained in that agreement, you're going to, by the end of the collaborative or mediation process, understand that inside and out, agree with it, know that it's the right decision, and know it's the right decision because you've had all of your questions answered before you signed.
Right. Well, and the other thing is too, is that there's no time frame, right? So often you can have an agreement made or something will happen and they'll say, okay, well, we're going to divide this, you're going to get that, blah, blah, blah. This is going to happen, but there's no time frame that that's going to happen. And so it's like, okay, fine, you're going to get it, but when, okay, that's great. And, if you've got a difficult, partner, you can just forget that, it's never going to happen. But yeah, so it's like, I mean, it's really important to sit down and really talk about these things. We're going to have to close out the show here in a minute, but I wanted to just touch on mediation because so often we'll go through the divorce, right? Because, it's just our life goes on, it continues. And so, the path we take, we divorce, everything's going great, but then we find there's some issues, right, later on that come up that we need to try to work out. Is mediation good for that, to be able to come back to kind of gather together with someone, a professional, to be able to kind of sort some of those issues out? Because I think we do have that, because our families are grown and different things happen that we don't realize it's going to happen.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And no agreement can anticipate every potential scenario down the road. So your agreement has to be durable, but flexible where it can be. So I'm putting aside property distribution, but when it comes to child support and your parenting plan, there's going to be disagreements. Hopefully your agreement gives you a framework for discussion. What are we going to do when there's a disagreement? Are we going to go back to mediation? Are we going to meet with a co-parenting specialist? Are we going to first meet face to face? What are the steps? And then absolutely, the idea of the framework is so nobody is left saying, what do we do now? We have no direction. And so hopefully your agreement has direction, and hopefully court is your last resort, because it certainly makes the most sense to go back to the mediation room again, if that's within your agreement, to try to work out what's life changes. What's good for a 2-year-old in your parenting plan isn't going to be what's appropriate for your 12-year-old. These things have to have some level of flexibility and revisiting as time goes on.
Right. Yeah, I think that's really great for people to realize that mediation is there for them when they feel like they need to come back together to try to discuss it and try to work out and get an agreement that can be put in place. And then once you get that agreement, do you then file that with the court? Is that what you do?
If there's a modification of the original agreement, yes.
Okay. So then you can do it that way. Well, we've learned a lot here and in just a very short period of time. And I think it's important. So if anyone has any questions, they can call Rosemarie right here on this number. It's 475-289-7801, 475-289-7801, or just check out our website, divorcemediationct.com, divorcemediationct.com. Well, thank you so much for being on the show. Are there any last words you'd like to share with our audience today?
Oh, so many, but thank you so much for having me, Cece. I think the best thing to think about when you're going through this path is just do your research and find the team that is going to best align with how you want to proceed through the process. And be easy on yourself. It's not easy.
Yeah, you're so right with that. Well, it's so nice having you on. I hope you'll come back again, share more with us. I know that you support us. We want to support you and want to thank you so much for all that you do. It's very important here. So thank you again. I appreciate it, Rosemarie.
Thanks, Cece.
All right, everyone. You're listening to Going Solo, Life After Relationship Loss on WGSN-DB Going Solo Network. Anyone want to reach me, you feel free. It's at goingsolonetwork@gmail.com. We would love to hear from you. I answer those emails personally, so no one else sees them but me, so you can say whatever you'd like in them, but please be kind. The email again is goingsolonetwork@gmail.com. So we'll catch you back here next time. Bye for now.